Hey there, welcome to the Family History Foundation. Today we are going to be digging deep into unlocking European ancient DNA. Wow, this is going to be a fun journey through 10,000 years of migration and migration history. Once again, welcome to the Family History Foundation, where the past is relative to the future. And you can find us over on familyhistoryfoundation.com, which is the site for our blog where you can read everything, sign up for our newsletter, and stay ahead of everything on this YouTube channel. But stay tuned, keep locked in, because we are going to take you on this really deep dive into unlocking the mystery of your ancient DNA. Ancient European DNA. So this article is really about unlocking the secrets and what they reveal about your ancestors, right? So have you ever wondered if your DNA carries echoes of epic journeys across mountains, rivers, and seas? European ancient DNA offers a time capsule, letting us peek into 10,000 years and more of human migration. Where did we come from, right? From the resilient hunter-gatherers who survived the Ice Age to the Bronze Age horse riders who thundered from the steppes. Each of these movements left a genetic imprint that you can still see today in today's DNA tests. I have them in mine, and I'm sure they're there in yours. Yes, even your own ancestry DNA results, as I have said. Well, in this article, we dive deep into the story of ancient European DNA, tracing the journeys that shaped not only an entire continent, but also potentially your own family tree. In today's table of contents, we are going to be talking about the rise of the hunter-gatherer farmers and the great agricultural revolution and the transition to the Bronze Age, and unraveling a few Indo-European mysteries, including the Indo-European language puzzle. We are going to talk about the Iron Age and classical errors. We're going to talk about medieval mixes, different things in that medieval time. We're also going to explore ancient DNA and how to sort of aggregate that with your own results. And we have a bunch of resource articles and future of ancient DNA, unlocking more secrets. We also have a puzzle and a challenge for you at the very end. Okay, so check this out. The study of ancient DNA has completely changed how we understand prehistory. Think of ancient DNA as a genetic time machine. Scientists extract tiny fragments of DNA from ancient bones and teeth and other source material, then sequence them to reconstruct a genetic blueprint of individuals who lived thousands of years ago. These discoveries have revealed that Europe was first peopled by Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, hardy groups, very resilient people who roamed in small bands, surviving on wild game and forage plants during the Ice Age. Yeah. When you take an ancestry DNA test today, small segments of your genome might still connect you back to these early Europeans. In the testing that I have done on there and on family tree DNA, that has definitely been the case for me. The genetic footprint they left behind is surprisingly strong in certain regions, especially in Scandinavia and the Baltic states. The deep ancestral history of Europe is uncovered through the lens of ancient DNA, revealing the incredible migrations that have shaped its population from the Ice Age all the way to the present. This captivating journey through time offers a profound understanding of where modern Europeans come from, and not only modern Europeans in Europe, but the descendants of Europeans all across the globe. Okay? By following the threads of European ancient DNA, we see the continent's story not as a static past, but as a living, evolving tapestry of movement and connection. It's where our people came from. When you receive your ethnicity estimates on Ancestry DNA, those percentages are built on reference panels derived from the same type of research we explore here. Your Norway or England and Northwestern Europe or Baltics results are echoes of these 10,000-year-old journeys. If you're just getting started with genealogy and genetic research, check out our beginner's guide to genealogy research. It is the #1 guide and the only guide you're going to need to look at if you have any questions about how to conduct research in a proper, methodical, scientific way, ensuring that your data and your information stays in the right perspective, okay? So go on over to familyhistoryfoundation.com, check that out. The agricultural revolution. This is what kicked off humanity's propulsion into technological changes that now we are enjoying. About 8,000 years ago, everything changed in our prehistory. Neolithic farmers arrived from the Fertile Crescent, bringing wheat, goats, and a brand new way of life. They didn't just bring new technology, they brought new genes. The DNA evidence shows that these farmers mixed with the local hunter-gatherers, causing Europe's first major population boom. The genetic diversity of the continent skyrocketed, and modern Europeans today carry a blend of these ancient genetic lineages. Those are the lineages that we carry today. Want to get started with your own research? Check out our guide, the Genealogy Research Online Guide. From hunter-gatherers to farmers, we're going to talk about agricultural intensification. The first chapter of European ancient DNA story, takes us to the last ice age, when small groups of hunter-gatherers roamed the tundra and the forests. These Paleolithic people left behind bones and teeth that have now been sequenced to reveal a unique genetic signature. Archaeologists have sequenced individuals such as Cheddarman from England, whose striking blue eyes and dark skin surprised researchers and reshaped our view of Mesolithic Europeans. These early Europeans were resilient survivors and oftentimes adapting to very harsh environments and gradually repopulating the continent as glaciers retreated, right? New technologies were invented to adapt to these environments and new ways of life. The arrival of agriculture was a really huge turning point, as we said, and Neolithic farmers migrated into Europe from the Fertile Crescent, Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, bringing wheat, barley, goats, sheep, and a variety of other things. Now, during the Bronze Age, we're going to talk about the Yamna Enigma and the Indo-European mystery. Fast forward to the Bronze Age, and Europe sees another seismic genetic shift. Around 5,000 years ago, the Yamnaya people thundered in from the Pontic Caspian steppe, bringing not only domesticated horses and advanced metalwork, but also a new genetic signature that still dominates much of Europe today. These are the 3 migrations, and if you go on Ancestry and take a test, you can actually test your ancient DNA according to these 3 major migrations that we have just talked about. The steppe ancestry is one of the most significant findings in the study of European ancient DNA. The Yamnaya contributed genes that are now linked to traits like lactose intolerance and even certain disease resistances. If you've ever looked at your Ancestry DNA ethnicity estimate and noticed Eastern European and Russia or Baltic segments, you may be seeing the legacy of these nomadic herders. And as someone who has Baltic descendants, myself, that definitely holds true. Again, one of the most dramatic revelations in European ancient DNA research is the appearance of these Yamnaya people around 3000 BCE, which stands for before Christian era. These nomadic herders from the Eurasian steppe swept into Europe, bringing with them domesticated horses and wagons, and an entirely new cultural practice. Researchers have studied individuals like the famous corded ware burials to understand how the Imnaya spread. This step admixture is a key to understanding the spread of Indo-European languages, which today form the backbone of most European tongues, with the exception of a few language isolates, which you might find in Hungary or in Estonia or in Finland and a few other spots. Definitely the rest of Europe belongs to the Indo-European language family. The Imnaya legacy is still present in the genomes of modern Europeans, linking millions of people to these Bronze Age migrants. If you notice a high percentage of Northern Europe or Baltic states ancestry in your DNA results, you may be seeing a genetic echo of these powerful steppe ancestors. Let's look at the Indo-European language puzzle. Perhaps even more fascinating is their linguistic legacy. The Imnaya migrations, early Europeans, are closely associated with the spread of Indo-European languages, which would later evolve into English, Spanish, Russian, and many others. European ancient DNA confirms that this wasn't just a cultural spread, it was a mass movement of people who reshaped the genetic and linguistic landscape. The most ancient of all the Indo-European languages, that is the closest modern day language, which sounds like the original Indo-European. I'll give you a guess what that is. And we're gonna click the clock, see if you can guess. What is the most ancient sounding closest to the original European language that is spoken today? Well, the answer is Lithuanian. Yay, go Lithuania. Make sure to brush up on your Lithuanian history and knowledge. If you would like to learn more about the country and its people and its language, I have a few articles linked there right on the Family History Foundation. Head over to familyhistoryfoundation.com. Some of the articles that I have written featuring knowledge about about Lithuania and the country are the one you should start with these in descending order. Who are the Lithuanians? People, flag, geography, and language. The story of the Lithuanian nation from pagans to kings. The founding of the Lithuanian nation under King Mindaugas. And the Baltic Way. Freedom for Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Iron Age, classical eras, empires, trade, and enduring legacies. By the Iron Age, Europe was a patchwork of Celtic, Germanic, and Slavic tribes, each leaving subtle but distinct genetic signatures. Ancient DNA analysis reveals that these groups were remarkably mobile, trading and intermarrying across large distances. This was the period where Europe's genetic map began to resemble something closer to what we see today. Genetic data tells us that while populations moved, many regions retained a surprising amount of continuity, suggesting cultural change, sometimes outweighed population replacement. And back in the 1400s, guess which nation had the largest footprint? And that was the Lithuanian nation. And you can read more about that in my articles. Well, later on, the Roman Empire left an indelible mark on Europe's history, but its genetic footprint is much more nuanced. And that's because the peninsula, the Italian peninsula, is right on the Mediterranean and is very, very ancient in of its genetic admixture. Well, DNA evidence reveals that while there was extensive migration into Roman cities, many rural areas stayed genetically stable. This discovery challenges the assumption that Roman expansion always meant mass movement of people. It also highlights how European ancient DNA allows us to separate cultural influence from biological ancestry. Modern-day Italians and Southern Europeans often see genetic traces of North Africa and Middle East in their ancestry DNA results, a reflection of centuries of Mediterranean trade and Roman expansion. For more fascinating migrations and cultural shifts, you can check out our article on how to overcome genealogy brick walls. If you're stuck and wanting to know how to move past those, I give you 10 powerful strategies to break through. Well, the Roman Empire's genetic footprint expanded. And surprisingly, European ancient DNA shows that while Roman culture spread widely, a lot of its population has remained settled. And as the saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. Well, medieval times, we see another shift. And I'm going to call this medieval mixes and modern manifestations. The Middle Ages were a genetic whirlwind. Viking raids, Anglo-Saxon migrations, and even the Mongol invasions all left traces in European DNA. If you have Scandinavian ancestry that shows up strongly in your DNA test, you may carry Viking genetic markers, which could explain why you feel drawn to the fjords of Norway on vacation. The medieval era was anything but stagnant for Europe's genetic makeup. Viking raids and settlements left measurable genetic signatures in Britain, Ireland, and even parts of France, often Normandy. In fact, the etymology of the region Normandy literally means Northman, because Norman was a French conflagration with the Normans, and Norman being the origin of Norman being Northmen, which referred to the Vikings. And we should also side note that there was no one single invasion of a single pod of Vikings. Vikings went everywhere and came from different sources. And you can read more on the Family History Foundation. I actually have a few articles outlining that. Anyway, back to our article. The sequencing of remains from sites like the Salome ships, burials in Estonia, shows just how widespread Viking contact really was. Anglo-Saxon migrations reshaped the genetic map of England. In fact, the Norman invasion of 1066 kind of, in a way, was another Viking invasion. And while the Mongol invasions introduced traces of East Asian ancestry into parts of Eastern Europe. Over time, all of these movements blended into the distinct genetic clusters we see today. Whether you're Scandinavian, Mediterranean, or Slavic, your DNA carries the echoes of these centuries of mixing. Ancient DNA helps genealogists connect these patterns to their personal family stories. When Ancestry DNA updates your ethnicity estimate, it's often because these new discoveries about these medieval mixtures refine the reference panels used for modern DNA matching. And as I've been on Ancestry for over 10 years, and I actually screenshot every update, I can tell you for absolute certainty that your ethnicity estimates have shifted, or will shift, even slightly. They're slighter nowadays, but in years past, they used to shift fairly dramatically with updates. Well, how do you explore European ancient DNA with your own results? If you're curious to see how your DNA fits into this grand story, well, most major testing companies, including Ancestry DNA, allow you to compare your results with reference populations that reflect ancient migrations. You can even download your raw DNA and upload it to third-party tools like Family Tree DNA that break down your ancestry into hunter-gatherer, farmer, and step components. I like Family Tree DNA, FTDNA. I have used them, and I've tested over there, and I think it's the most scientific of the sites. It may not be the most pretty looking, but it's very. If you want a DNA site that's going to test all of your genetic sequence, that's the place to go. Okay, well, future of ancient DNA. The story doesn't end here. As sequencing technology improves, scientists are recovering DNA from smaller and more degraded samples, pushing our understanding further back in time. Imagine one day being able to pinpoint not just which migrations your ancestors were part of, but even their individual life stories. Researchers are now experimenting with single-cell analysis and new ways to preserve ancient samples. These might reveal all kinds of stuff about what your DNA say. Fun. Well, here's your challenge. Now that you've taken this journey through 10,000 years of migrations, I challenge you to explore your own DNA results. Look for clues about hunter-gatherer, farmer, or steppe ancestry and share your findings in the comments below. Do you see traces of Viking, Celtic, or Roman? Compare your results with family members to see how your unique DNA mix has been passed down through the generations. Well, that was a glossing over of Unlocking European Ancient DNA, a fun journey through 10,000 years of migrations over the major 3 periods. So now connect that to your own ancestry, your own family lines. Where did they come from? Where did they connect to? And what were they a part of? Because it's going to really reveal, and make you even more connected to place and connected to time. And I think that's it's one of the more cooler things to me about genealogy and the difference between genealogy and family history, because it's about our stories. Well, thank you very much for being a part of the Family History Foundation. Head on over to familyhistoryfoundation.com and love you. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.